With me today is Dr. Marian Kelsey, and she is going to talk to us about what she sees as the significance of the Book of Jonah. Marian, why study it?
It's a nice short book. It's written in very clear Hebrew, and it's got a lovely, bizarre little story in it, which is always good, something to grab your interest. There are big fish that swallow people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to dig into the Book of Jonah and see what on earth is going on here, a lot of people know the kind of general story. Man gets swallowed by fish, gets spat out at Nineveh and tells Nineveh to behave itself, and so it does. But when you look at the kind of the detail, the way that the story is constructed, the way it's all written and woven together, you have a very significant part of the story where Jonah describes God, and he says he's actually complaining about God, and he's complaining about God because God is so gracious and compassionate, and isn't that awful? And he's a God who relents of evil, relents of punishing people when they have done wrong. And so that's it looks like it's kind of the high point of the text in some ways. We've got this wonderful description of God as a lovely, compassionate, relenting God. But throughout the whole text, there are an awful lot of allusions to other parts of the Bible, and so lots of hints and kind of reminiscences of other biblical stories. And what you begin to notice once you're tracking all of these allusions is that most of those are to stories in biblical history in which God was very much not a relenting God. He was not gracious and compassionate in that instant. He did punish people. And so there are allusions to the flood narrative, where God got so fed up with everybody, he wiped out almost the entire world. And there are allusions to the Sodom and Gomorrah narrative, where God got fed up with the bad behavior of a couple of cities and wiped them out entirely. And there are allusions to when Moses was on Sinai with God, and all of the Israelites down below the mountain started worshipping the golden calf, and God got very, very angry and threatened to destroy everybody. And Moses managed to pull God back from the brink, pull God back and make God promise not to destroy everybody, but God still plagued everybody, and there was still punishment for their sin. And then as well, there are allusions to the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah talks about the possibility of God relenting from punishment if people repent and start behaving themselves, but they don't. And so Jerusalem is destroyed, and so God grows weary of relenting in the book of Jeremiah. And these are all the allusions that the book of Jonah is pulling into its narrative. And so we have a description of God as a God who relents of evil, and then lots of stories about God where God is not relenting of punishing people. And these two things kind of stand in tension in the book of Jonah, and you're left wondering what to do with them. What does the book of Jonah want you to make of this tension in the narrative? And another very significant thing to know about the book of Jonah is that it talks about, in the text, the city of Nineveh being spared punishment, God deciding not to wipe out the city of Nineveh. But it was written as a text long after Nineveh had been destroyed. When Nineveh was completely wiped out, nobody lived there anymore, the city was in ruins. And so you've got a story about the saving of a city, but every single person who reads that book knows that Nineveh is destroyed. Nineveh doesn't exist anymore. And so again, a tension between whether Nineveh was spared or destroyed. And I think what's going on in introducing these tensions into the text and forcing the reader to try and work at them is that the book is showing its readers that God does have the freedom to punish or to spare, but he also has the freedom to reverse a judgment. And so Nineveh was spared in one instance in the book of Jonah, but later on it was destroyed, it was punished. And so God had reversed his judgment with respect to Nineveh. And that sounds like quite a grim message for the book, but actually for everyone reading the book, Nineveh's gone, it's out of the picture, it's destroyed, and so nobody really worries about Nineveh anymore. But the city that they do care about is Jerusalem, which has been destroyed as punishment for wrongdoing, as we see in the book of Jeremiah, and it lies in ruins. But the people who are reading the book of Jonah are wondering what's going to happen to Jerusalem in the long term. Will God have mercy on us and restore Jerusalem? And the book of Jonah is saying, yes, there's a chance that he will, because God can reverse his judgment. He can spare and destroy, and then he can reverse his judgment and restore as well.
So it's a very complex story to speak to the situation of the people who are wondering about their own future.
Yes, exactly. It's a bit like a kind of thought experiment. It's taking this long dead city of Nineveh and using that as an example to work through some of the ideas about God's character, whether he will spare or destroy, whether he is a relenting God, and God's actions in the world, and what the consequences of that are for the people reading it.
Marian, thank you very much.